Here's Peter Dutton.
At the show who are showing dairy cattle at the moment, and it's, I think, a real window for kids who live in the city to look into the reality of life on the land, talking to those dairy farmers about milking twice a day, up at 5 a.m, milking 5:30 a.m, milking at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Sometimes we just take for granted what we see on our shelves in the supermarket, and you race through and throw things into the trolley. But the fact is that people work hard, and on the land, given the variations in weather patterns and the difficulty that families face with the remoteness and the disparity with schooling and education, health, etc. I think the Royal Easter Show, and every show actually, is a really great opportunity to say thank you to a farmer and thank you to people who come off the land for the work that they do. Really pleased to announce today that a coalition government, if elected at the next election, will provide $20 million to help refurbish and uplift some of the regional shows. And many of the people we've seen today who are displaying their cattle and their produce, they obviously go regularly to these regional shows, and some of them need an injection of funds to upgrade some of the facilities, and $20 million will go a long way to that. We've also announced today, as you know, just a further commitment from the coalition in support of small business, particularly smaller businesses, micro businesses starting up. Somebody with a bedroom at the back of the house, or a part of the garage where they're now producing, or they're now providing a service to a bigger company, and they want their business to grow. And we want to encourage small business in this country. 30,000 small businesses have closed under this government, and we want to make sure we can get our economy and our country back on track. If we do that, then we can provide real support to families. Australians don't want changes to taxation around taxing an unrealised capital gain, or a new tax on cars. They don't want negative gearing changes so that it makes it harder to rent a home or harder to invest in real estate. That's the uncertainty that Labor's creating. I want to make sure that we can help families and help businesses grow in the most amazing country in the world, and I'm really pleased to be here today to celebrate a very significant part of our culture. So we'll start here and then we'll go around. Yeah.
The latest tracking poll shows the coalition's primary vote sliding even further. There's just 2 weeks exactly till polling day. Can you actually turn this around now?
Well, I think there's a big disparity, as you're seeing in some of the published poll, to what we're seeing, and I think most people are more interested, frankly, in what is going to happen in their lives if Anthony Albanese is re-elected. It's a disaster. 3 more years of the same just means higher power prices, higher gas prices. People just can't afford 3 more years of Labor, and the coalition has a plan to provide support to get the cost of fuel down, to give some of your taxes back, to make sure that we can help you buy a home, and we want to help Australians, and I think that'll be the focus over the next couple of weeks. I also think there are a lot of Australians, frankly, who just haven't switched their mind yet to the choices and what they're doing on election day. So we've got a lot of time between now and polling day, but it's a big decision for our country to make. And when I look at the effort in our marginal seats and what we're tracking, and I see the efforts of our members on the ground, our candidates on the ground, I'm actually really enthused by what we've seen. Yes, mate.
Will the coalition support or oppose Labor's proposed legislation to prevent the Fair Work Commission from ever reducing penalty rates?
Well, look, I mean, if you're after yet another stunt from the Labor Party, go no further than this issue. It's what they've done in relation to Mediscare and their completely false claims in relation to nuclear energy, etc. The independent umpire sets the conditions. It's been abided by from both sides of politics, and we don't propose any departure from the current arrangements. What I do know, though, is that real wages have gone back under this government. Households have been in a household recession for 7 consecutive quarters. We've had the biggest crunch on our standard of living for many families in their whole life. This is a really bad government, and I want to make sure that we can help families with their cost of living and help get their lives back on track.
Doctors are warning today that the Medicare policy will disadvantage women who require longer consultations. Do you still stand by matching that policy? What are you doing in the space of women's health? And also just another one, you've come to the Easter show. Why have you decided to come before the gates actually open?
I'll come to the second part in a second. Firstly, in relation to women's health, as you know, we've had a really significant focus on trying to provide support around endometriosis and other conditions. We announced a review of the MBS schedule to have a look at ways in which we might be able to provide further support to women. We've announced $500 million toward many programs which we think will be of benefit to women going to see their doctors, and we've worked very closely with the AMA and with the RACGP as well to look at how the different item numbers can work, and particularly the C&D consultations as well. So we'll continue to work closely with the medical bodies, but doctors as well. We need to get more GPs trained so that people can access their doctor and have a relationship, because that continuity of care is important as well. And in relation to the show, I think the gates are open now, so we'll see lots of people shortly, but it becomes too hectic with the cattle and inside the pavilion when we've got a pack of 40 and we've got kids around and everything else. And I noticed lots of the cameramen, and I think the reporters as well, were very cautious in where they were stepping today as well, so we didn't want to see any accidents there. I'd hate to see somebody in the media slip over in that shed and spoil that white shirt or white dress or something like that. So we're thinking of you, I guess, is the point I'm making. Yes, mate.
Mr. Dutton, new polling today shows that Labor's messaging on nuclear is cutting through, with the majority agreeing it'll cost $600 billion to build. Do you regret hitching your wagon to nuclear, and do you think you've done enough to sell it this campaign so far, given you haven't been to a proposed site yet?
I made the decision to support nuclear power, not because it's an easy political win, but because it's a win for our country. And I believe absolutely it is the best decision for our country. Now, the Labor Party didn't support nuclear submarines, but we did the deal, and the Labor Party eventually came to support the submarine deal. And to their credit, and I paid credit to the Prime Minister at the time, and I have since, when he was opposition leader, he supported the nuclear investment into submarines. It is the best decision for our country because it's the best decision for 19 of the top 20 economies in the world, but not for ours for some reason. So we have to make the tough decisions that are right for our country. The $600 million figure, as you know, is a complete fabrication. The independent economic analysis puts our plan at about $331 billion, compared to Labor's almost $600 billion for their renewables-only policy. Our plan is 44% cheaper than Labor's. So if you want cheaper electricity, if you want reliable electricity, and you want to decarbonise, then our plan is the plan for you. And I think a lot of Australians can look through the scare campaign. Some people will be fooled by it because they'll think the Prime Minister's telling the truth when he's not. And I think, again, it's a test of the Prime Minister's ability to sell a scare campaign. He's good at it, that's what he does, but he's bad at governing. And Australian families feel that in their own household budgets. So I think we are more than happy to talk about our policy because it is right for our country. It's not an easy pathway because Labor want to run their scare campaign, but I just ask people to research a bit further beyond what they're seeing from Anthony Albanese at the moment.
Mr. Dutton, you talked earlier about, in fact, I'll quote your words to you, but the fact is that people work hard and on the land given the variations in weather patterns. Why is it so hard for you to just say climate change and acknowledge that it exists?
Latika, I believe in climate change. That's not the point of David's question the other night, was the impact of climate on that particular weather event. So believe in climate change. I've been very clear about that. We're the only party, in fact, going to this election with a credible pathway to achieve net zero by 2050. This is the reality. The Prime Minister dropped any reference to green hydrogen the other night. Don't forget that green hydrogen was central to the replacement of baseload power in Labor's model. It now doesn't appear in any of the Prime Minister's language. So when you talk about time and you talk about cost, what cost and timing is there in Labor's policy? It's uncertain. So if you want to listen to Keir Starmer, Keir Well, a responsible Labor leader, he said that they can't achieve net zero without nuclear. And that's the reality in the United States as well, in France, in Canada. It's the reality around the world. And I just wish we could have a mature conversation. I challenge the Prime Minister on a debate on nuclear power, and to this day he hasn't responded. And that will tell you something about the Prime Minister's approach to things. He's more into scare campaigns, and he's a bad Prime Minister that has let Australians down. And that's been the experience of families who are paying 30% more for groceries now and 34% more for gas and 32% more for electricity, this country just can't afford 3 more years of Labor.
You've spoken about your aspiration for tax indexation. Why didn't you bring that up earlier on in the campaign? Why is it now being spoken about at the back end?
Well, we've had a process of going through and looking at different policies and options. We've put forward the policies which we think are going to be in the best interests of Australians. And what I like about the 25 cent a litre reduction in fuel tax is that it delivers support right now to pensioners, to small businesses. I mean, the people I've spoken to, mums who literally just are pulling their hair out, not knowing how they're going to put food on the table. Food's up by 30% under this government. So that immediate relief is important. Our gas plan, which brings down the cost of wholesale gas by 23%, means that the cost of electricity production comes down and the cost of manufacturing comes down, the cost of running a dairy farm comes down. And that's been our plan and our policy. And as we've gone forward, we've looked at what we could afford to announce. We haven't been reckless like Labor in the spending. This is the biggest spending government in over 40 years. And that's why interest rates have stayed high. And it's why interest rates will always be lower under a coalition government. So I think we've gone through that stepped process. And yes, we want to clean up Labor's mess, as John Howard did in '96 when he was elected. There was an enormous Labor mess. And this is history repeating itself now with the Labor Party, who's just been reckless. And I want to make sure that we can clean this mess up, but provide support to people now, have an interim solution, and then make sure that we can introduce the reforms that are necessary, because bracket creep just whacks every taxpayer whenever you get a pay rise or whenever you get a promotion at work. And the Labor Party paying 70 cents a day in tax relief in 15 months' time, I just think is like it's a real tin ear to where people are at the moment.
Mr. Dutton, on Russia's bid to host military aircraft out of Indonesia, that briefing that you requested has been declined. What do you make of that? And specifically, what do you make of the suggestion that that briefing has been declined because there was no major policy decision to be made in the whole affair?
I ask the Prime Minister, what is he hiding? I mean, why not be open and transparent with the Australian people? The Prime Minister says that we live in the most precarious period since 1945, the end of the Second World War. And then he doesn't say anything about it. So say to the Prime Minister, be honest. And when we were in government, in the last campaign, as I recall, I provided a briefing on a national security matter to Brendan O'Connor at the time. What has the Prime Minister got to hide? And if the government has done the right thing here and they weren't caught by surprise and they had detail, why wouldn't they be open and honest with us? They've ripped $80 billion out of defence, and I just don't think they take national security seriously at a time when we should be taking it seriously. So I think there's a lot for the Prime Minister to answer here, and there should be a briefing provided, and there just hasn't been.
Do you think there is a major policy decision to be made in this space?
Well, we don't know, because we haven't had the briefing as to what the policy response will be from the government. It just seems that they were caught out yet again. You have nuclear, perhaps nuclear submarines. We don't know. Again, in relation to the naval assets circumnavigating our country, the Prime Minister doesn't know about what's happening in relation to that exercise if it weren't for a Virgin pilot, which is quite remarkable. And I think it's unsettling for Australians who see this Prime Minister as weak and out of his depth and just slow, always slow to respond when his country needs him. And unfortunately, the Prime Minister, I think a lot of people put a lot of faith and trust into him at the last election. The $275 promise was broken. We're seeing broken promises in relation to health. The bulk billing rates plummeted under this government, and the Prime Minister has no solution or no answer to it except promising more of the same: higher electricity costs, higher costs for groceries, and just everything becomes more expensive under Mr Albanese, and families just can't afford it.
Mr Dutton, the Easter show only goes on with the help of the workers here who are willing to work public holidays. They would benefit from Labor's proposal today. You've labelled it a stunt. What message do you think that sends to those workers?
There's no change to any of the industrial relations arrangements. That's it. The independent umpire, the Fair Work Commission, determines these things. It is a stunt. So Labor will run a line. They'll try and distract people away from the cost of living issue, which is the biggest issue that is facing Australians at the moment. It's been created through bad economic policy from the Labor Party. Food prices are up because of the government's bad policies. Gas is up and real wages have gone backwards under this government. So we support the policy that the Gillard-Rudd government supported, that the Albanese government supported, that the Morrison and Turnbull and Abbott government supported. So the stunt, and you'll see Murray Watt up breathless, screaming at the camera shortly, trying to scare people. I just say, have a look at what is happening in your own budgets at the moment. Have a look at what's happening in your own household budgets, and talk to small businesses here as well. Talking to dairy farmers before about the increased electricity costs. That means that your litre of milk is more expensive on the shelf when you pick it up at Coles or Woolies at an IGA. So I just think let's have a mature debate instead of these red herrings. And I think this election is about whether you can afford 3 more years of Labor, and I just don't think Australians can.
Mr Dutton, do you admire Donald Trump's immigration policies?
I don't, to be honest, spend too much time looking at what's happening in the United States. I know some journalists are obsessed with it. My focus and my obsession is with the Australian people, and our migration policies are the ones that work for us. When Labor put children into detention, I got them out. When people were drowning at sea, I stopped people drowning at sea. When Labor let criminals in and they committed sexual offences against women and they murdered people and they distributed drugs, I cancelled their visas and booted them out of our country. That's the migration policy that I've adopted. It's been successful. Labor has weakened our border security. They brought in 3,000 people from Gaza without security checks. So the migration policy of the Labor Party and the migration policy of the Liberal Party is what's on offer at this election. And I think if you have a look at the fact that people have experienced a housing crisis because of Labor's Big Australia policy, no one knew anything about it before the election. Not a word was uttered by the Prime Minister. And yet 1 million people were brought in over 2 years, a 70% increase in the number of people coming into our country in any 2-year period in our country's history. So that's what's created the housing crisis. So in terms of the migration policies on offer at this election, I think Australians are much safer to go with the coalition because they know that Labor's hopeless when it comes to migration policy.